One of the most iconic and most used items from the Fallout franchise is the RobCo Pip-Boy Personal Computer. This ARM-mounted computer was introduced in the very first Fallout game in 1997, and still continues to be one of the main staples of the Fallout series to this day, over 25 years later. The Pip-Boy is used to check the player's inventory, world map, as well as, in later games, comes with some very useful features for navigating the wasteland, such as a radio and a Geiger counter. In a joint partnership with RobCo, which is quoted in Fallout 3 as being the most successful joint venture in the history of American industry, Vault-Tec decided to equip all Vault personnel from all Vaults with Pip-Boy personal computers. So it's no surprise that we see the Pip-Boy in literally every Fallout game. With that being said, however, the Pip-Boy isn't one singular item of technology that we can reference. It has actually changed game to game with a series of advancements as well as the overall look and usability. Simply put, as the Fallout series progressed, the Pip-Boy went with it. So today, I wanted to dedicate this video to discussing the history of the Pip-Boy inside of the Fallout series. Our first stop for the Pip-Boy, the very first version named Pip-Boy 1.0, is ironically not the first chronologically speaking for the Fallout series, but is highlighted in Fallout 4's opening cinematic.
People enjoyed luxuries once thought the realm of science fiction. Domestic robots, fusion-powered cars, portable computers.
So, obviously the Pip-Boy 1.0 isn't one of the usable in-game items, and although the cinematic for Fallout 4 is very well made, in my opinion, the entire cinematic is there just to briefly tell the story of the Fallout series for people playing Fallout 4. But I still feel that there are a few similarities and differences that are worth pointing out here in terms of the development of the Pip-Boy. The three things that I want to point out specifically from this picture are the wrist-mounted mechanism, the screen, as well as the buttons and the dial that you can see here. This thing is obviously too large to be practical, but the overall wrist-mounted design, as well as the distinguishing features that have stuck with Pip-Boys in every game, are there. As the first version, it's also interesting to see how large in size it is compared to the Pip-Boys that we use in the Fallout games. With wires and tubes protruding out, it looks bulky, heavy, and totally impractical, but I think it was a nice touch by Bethesda to add this into the introduction sequence, since it gives us a look back at the development and span on lore for one of the most recognizable aspects of the entire series. Not shown here or in any other Pip-Boy variant, but I feel it's important to mention, these Pip-Boys are apparently powered by a fission battery. There is no mention in-game to this, but it is talked about briefly in the Fallout role-playing game rulebook, which honestly makes sense given that almost everything in the Fallout universe, as far as the United States technological sector is concerned, is nuclear-powered. The question of how these personal computers are actually powered has been brought up a lot while researching for this video, and I wanted to share this concept of it being powered by a fission battery. But moving on from the concepts from development and talking about the official Pip-Boy models, the first model that we can actually use in a Fallout game is the Pip-Boy Model 2000 from Fallouts 1 and 2. In Fallout 1 and 2, which are two-dimensional, the Pip-Boy 2000 is used as the general interface of the entire game. This, for example, utilizes the dialogue option to speak to other people, as well as the bartering interface for shops. The Pip-Boy 2000 inside of the game, lore-wise, also allows for dozens of functions, such as tracking the player's progress, generating automatic maps of the local area, recording audio and video for later playback, and a built-in alarm clock that serves as a waiting function to pass the time. There is a small misconception that I found with this version of the Pip-Boy, more specifically with the mounting system. A lot of people seem to think that the older versions of the Pip-Boy were handheld instead of wrist-mounted. While it is true that in the unreleased Fallout 3 game codenamed Van Buren, there was going to be an actual handheld item called the Pip-Pad, it is confirmed in the Fallout 1 manual that the Pip-Boy 2000 as we know it was designed to be wrist-mounted. I don't have a lot of experience playing the older Fallout titles, but I think that the Pip-Boy was a unique idea for an interface, and I think that the look of it fits very well with the concept of 1950s style retro-futuristic technology. Moving on to the first 3D Fallout games, Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, these games showed the updated Pip-Boy 3000 model, which has its differences from the Pip-Boy 2000. Similar to the 2000 model, the 3000 keeps tabs on the player's health, condition, as well as mapping out areas. Unlike the 2000 though, this is the first model that displays a Geiger counter, radio, as well as a screen that can illuminate the area around the player for low light areas. Something that I think is very interesting about the Pip-Boy 3000, however, is that it apparently has a biometric seal that doesn't allow the player to take it off. We learned this in Fallout 3 when asking Stanley Armstrong, Vault 101's mechanic, about our new Pip-Boy and how to take it off.
Get it off? Why in the world would you want to do that? Your Pip-Boy's the best friend you'll ever have. Besides, you can't get it off. Biometric seals, etc. I could tell you some stories about trying to take them off the old folks. Well, that's hardly a fit subject for a kid's birthday party. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. Pretty soon you'll wonder how you ever got along without it.
There are obviously some inconsistencies with this dialogue option, such as how the player can change clothes through the Pip-Boy, as well as in New Vegas, which uses the same model of Pip-Boy, we can actually swap it out for a different model. But that information really deserves its own video, and I'm not going to cover it in detail here today. Something else about the Pip-Boy 3000 though, is that it apparently came in different models with different, possibly upgraded, internal components. The one we are equipped with in Fallout 3, and I presume New Vegas as well, is the 3000A model, which apparently has a reputation for being durable, albeit a bit simple, according to Stanley.
As a matter of fact, I did. I'm glad you like it. Some may think the A series is a bit basic, but I've always preferred them for their reliability. That one I've been saving just for you, though. The A series is a bit heavier than some of the fancier models, but it won't let you down. I bet you could drop a bomb on one and it would still work. As a matter of fact, I know you could.
Moving on to Fallout New Vegas, we are given the Pip-Boy 3000 by Doc Mitchell. This is another example of the idea of a biometric scanner not being consistent, but again, I'll talk about that another time. It's honestly a very nice gift, though, and it seems to be the exact model that we receive in Fallout 3. One of my absolute favorite things in the game, however, is what's called the Pimp-Boy 3 billion. This is a gold-plated and diamond-encrusted Pip-Boy that we can receive from Mick and Ralph's when completing the quest How Little We Know with the Omerta crime family. I know it's very wacky, but I honestly love this thing. The Pimp-Boy 3 billion even plays a song when equipped if the player has the Wild Wasteland perk installed. I mean, just listen to this.
Done.
Functionally, though, the Pimp-Boy 3 billion works the exact same as the regular Pip-Boy, with the only changes being cosmetic. Most likely a custom creation from Ralph and just something funny to add into the game. I think that Fallout New Vegas used the same Pip-Boy style as Fallout 3 because the company who was developing the game, Obsidian, were using the same assets as Bethesda's Fallout 3. The Pip-Boy in Fallout 3 added a lot of unique features to the concept, and I really like the Pip-Boy as a system to monitor the player's stats and access their inventory, biometric locks aside. Moving on to the final game I'm going to be discussing today, Fallout 4 with its new game engine came a new style of Pip-Boy. The Pip-Boy in Fallout 4 is called the Pip-Boy 3000 Mark IV, and works quite a bit differently than the original 3000 series. Aside from the obvious cosmetic changes, there are a lot more animations used for Vault Boy. The Mark IV can also display video games that can be picked up from holotapes such as Red Menace and Atomic Command. The Mark IV also got rid of the biometric seal, with the player just using a simple clamp to put it on or take it off. It appears that this version of the Pip-Boy was given to vaults around Boston. In Vault 111, however, their inhabitants weren't given Pip-Boys due to them being in cryogenic status, but the employees were equipped with them, and the sole survivor can pick theirs up from a long-deceased scientist. Also, another thing that sets the Mark IV version apart from the original is that the Mark IV has a plug that can directly access the panel to open vault doors, which we can do with other vaults that we come across in the Wasteland. I feel like the Pip-Boy 3000 Mark IV was quite a bit of an advancement from the original Pip-Boy 3000 used in previous games, and I think that Bethesda wanted to distinguish it as such. So the Pip-Boy 3000 Mark IV, I assume Mark IV being synonymous for Fallout 4, was branded differently as such. From looking at the concept art of Fallout 4, it appears that Bethesda put a lot of thought into the design of the Pip-Boy and how to make it more efficient when developing Fallout 4. While there are quite a few things that are different from the previous games, the overall concept of the Pip-Boys stayed the same throughout the Fallout series game's development, which I really appreciate. Overall, the big question left is that it's obvious that Vault-Tec didn't receive the same model of Pip-Boy for every vault, with different vaults receiving different models. Why is this? I've seen some very interesting solutions by other players, suggesting that since Vault-Tec built the vaults over the course of a few decades, that the vaults were stocked with Pip-Boys piecemeal as the Pip-Boys progressed through development and vaults were being built. As an example, Vault 13, that we see in Fallout 1 and 2, was completed in the year 2069, and was issued the Pip-Boy 2000, likely because it was the most recent model available, while Vault 112 was built in the year 2074, and was issued the Pip-Boy 3000. Similar to how an iPhone upgrades over the years, the Pip-Boy developed and had an upgraded version by the time development of newer vaults were finished. Furthermore, it's argued that since equipping a whole vault full of personalized computers is an expensive endeavor, the United States government wouldn't want to spend the money upgrading the vaults and decided to keep with what they had in stock. I honestly feel like this is a creative and entirely plausible solution to explain the reasoning for the different models and lore. However, I personally feel that the inconsistencies are more of a development issue than a lore one. Overall, the different Pip-Boy models throughout the years functioned a little bit differently depending on the game. For example, while Fallout 1 and 2's Pip-Boys were used as the entire interface, Fallout 3 and New Vegas versions were used specifically for the player's stats and inventory. I personally believe that the models were changed to reflect how the Pip-Boy interacted in-game, and will continue to do so in future Fallout games. But thanks to the Fallout community, we also have a very reasonable in-lore reason as to why this is. I want to thank you guys for stopping by and watching this video on the development of the Pip-Boy throughout the Fallout series. I also want to thank everybody who participated in my community poll regarding the Pip-Boy. It was very interesting reading the results and your opinions. Do you think that the different models can be explained in lore? I would love to hear how you guys feel in the comments below. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you have a great day.